From flipping cars to flipping houses and now funding mortgages, Geo Haddad shows that he has what it takes to build a mortgage business. And man, this was such a fun conversation. So Geo is a mortgage agent, been a mortgage agent for a year, been investing in real estate for a long time, and got into the business not long ago. And he shares how he took a really challenging file, used over communication to turn that file into 7 more files by getting this real estate agent that completely was bought and sold on him. And they call him the mortgage magician. And all of this as a new agent, I think it's absolutely an inspiring conversation. Also, at the end of this episode, him and I talk about how he's got a new plan. So he had funded 11 mortgages in his first 12 months while also working another job and having a renovation on a big project that he was working on. And so now his goal is to fund 25 mortgages in the next 12 months. And so we put together a plan 1, 3, 5, which we'll talk about. And I'm excited. We're going to actually document this journey that Gio has to get from where he's at right now to where he wants to go. And I think you're going to really enjoy it. Also, at the end, I'm going to share with you a little bit more about some of how Gio was able to pull off that mortgage magic with the underwriting stuff. Before we jump into this episode, I want to give a shout out to our title sponsor, Finmo. Finmo is a Canadian mortgage application, document collection, submission platform designed specifically for Canadian borrowers. It's very easy for borrowers to use. It's got some cool features like Smart Docs. It knows what documents your client needs based on how they filled the application. It's got a great secure portal, so they're not emailing you docs. They can send them to you and you can review them. It's got smart submission notes and pulls key data from the application, and it's connected to Lender Spotlight, which is the most powerful tool for searching rates and guidelines. Check them out at lendesk.com/Finmo and check out this conversation with Gio. Hey, Gio, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into the mortgage biz.
So my name is Gio Haddad. I am born out west. I'm from Alberta, actually, but I've called Ottawa home since the age of 1. I absolutely love everything mortgages, finance, and real estate. I started in retail banking about 20 years ago in my 20s. And I purchased my first rental property at the age of 22. And since then, I've been fortunate enough to have built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. So life is good. I'm a licensed mortgage agent as well. Just loving life.
Right. And so you got into the mortgage business not that long ago, which we'll talk about. And so what made you decide to get into mortgages versus, you've got, other stuff that you could be doing?
Oh God, where do I begin? Basically, through my real estate endeavors, I've built a bit of a reputation as being a real estate enthusiast. I mean, if you want me to start from the beginning, how I got into real estate and why I really decided to become a mortgage agent.
Sure, yeah.
At 14, I got my first job flipping burgers. And with my first paycheck, I bought my first car. I cleaned it and sold it at a profit. So by age 19...
Okay, how much was this car that you bought? It must have been it was not a Bugatti.
It's funny. I bought a 1982 Toyota Tercel for $600 and I sold it for $900. And I didn't even have a driver's license when I bought it. So I had the lady who sold it to me drive it to my parents' place. And I cleaned it inside and out, put it up in the Penny Saver. I don't know if you guys had that out west, the Penny Saver. It's just like local newspaper. I put an ad out and sold it for $900. So I made $300. And when you're 14, 20 years ago, $300 to me was a lot of money.
Oh yeah. Well, if a 14-year-old today does that, that's impressive. That's like it's basically a 50% return on your cash.
Yeah. Totally.
Not long, right? So that kind of got you the taste for like, hey, how to use money to make money instead of just using labor or time to make money.
That's right. So I got my first job at McDonald's, bought my first car, and then by the time I was 19, I had flipped almost just under 40 cars. So
wow.
I had,
So how much money did you make from flipping the 40 cars? Do you have a total?
You know what? Not off the top of my head,
guesstimate.
But usually I'd make like at least, $500 to a couple $1,000 per vehicle. And so that was by age 19. So fast forward to age 22, I had briefly moved to Toronto, and I met these guys who were flipping condos in Toronto. And these guys were a bit older than me. And I thought to myself, okay, so basically these guys are doing with condos what I was doing with cars in my teens, right? They're buying these condos.
It's bigger numbers. It's also the returns are bigger.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Same concept, right? So one day I ended up tagging along with them to, they were going to an opening of a new condo development. And I walked in there with no expectations. I wasn't planning on buying anything. And I saw what these guys were doing. And I was like, all right, I was talking to the sales manager, the salesperson in the office. And I said, give me your cheapest condo. And I ended up buying this like junior 1-bedroom, 400 and something square foot condo on the second floor facing an industrial parking lot. It was magnifique. It was amazing. I had no clue what I was doing. I was 22, but I knew I was doing something right because I was buying real estate. You know, you hear a lot of convo around, investing in real estate and getting into the real estate market even back then. So I had scrounged up all of my savings. I remember going to the bank and like taking out money on a line of credit for a portion of the down payment. And when you're buying something pre-construction, you don't need to get a mortgage on it right away. So I got lucky. But by the time I was ready to get a mortgage on that property, that was about 4 or 5 years later. I had been working as an account manager in retail banking for one of the big fives. And you wouldn't believe it. I applied for a mortgage. I needed to get a mortgage on this property because it was closing. And I got declined by my own bank and employer. They wouldn't approve me for a mortgage because I had under 2 years of experience working in that same
for them.
So I was so like, funny. Okay, what am I going to do? And keep in mind, after 5 years, imagine how much equity I had built up in this investment, right? So, right. I didn't really know back then what mortgage brokers did, right? People have this false perception that mortgage brokers only deal with people who have like really bad credit and, can't get financed through the bank. I mean, part of that was true for me because I couldn't get a mortgage from my bank, but, I had great credit and my finances were in order. I got linked up with a mortgage broker who was able to get me a mortgage for this property. Little did they know, and I'm talking about the bank, that tiny condo was literally the stepping stone that led me to build an 8-figure real estate portfolio that I have today.
Right. Amazing.
So I basically got a taste of that. And after I taken possession of that condo, I had moved back to Ottawa by then because I only moved to Toronto briefly. And so I decided to rent it out, and I essentially implemented what many know as the BRRRR strategy. I'm sure you've heard of that: the buy, renovate, refinance, rent, and repeat.
Yeah.
So I ended up refinancing the condo, and I bought a single house here in Ottawa that needed a lot of work, renovated it, rented it, refinanced it, and I bought a duplex. And then I did the same with that. And then I upgraded to a triplex, and I just kept going from there.
It's like the Monopoly game, right? You go from one house to next thing you know, you'll own a hotel or apartment building.
It's crazy because growing up, I loved playing Monopoly. And it's funny because I always say that I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, this is sometimes I'll stop and I'll think, man, like I'm in a real life Monopoly game. It's nuts. But as an investor, I've experienced a lot on the client side. I've had mortgages through A lenders, B lenders, private lenders. I've even dealt with, vendor takebacks. So I developed a bit of a reputation as a real estate enthusiast because I just became obsessed with the game, right?
Right.
And it's funny because a lot of people in my family have very addictive personalities. And they say it's like a genetic thing, right? When you have an addictive personality, and the addictions aren't always healthy ones. But I always said I'm grateful for this real estate addiction so I don't get addicted to anything else. And because I'm so passionate about this, it often comes up in conversation with people. And we can touch on that a bit later in terms of how I did in my first year as an agent, because I bring it up everywhere I go. And almost everyone has at least thought about wanting to buy a property or an investment property. Like every person I meet when this comes up, people talk about either a property they've owned or they own or they want to buy. So it was really easy to bring it up in conversation. And because of that, people often came to me for advice and still do. They come to me for real estate investing advice. Especially because
And so that led you to go, wait, maybe I can turn this into a business, which led you to go down the path of getting your mortgage license, right? That's kind of if I were to connect the dots there.
Exactly. So, it's funny. I found myself meeting people for coffee all the time. And I even accompanied some people for like on their showings when they go to see houses, because they call me up and want my advice on buying an investment property. And they're like, hey, can you come with me? So I was like, okay, it's great and all, but I needed to do something that would allow me to add more value to my free advice and allow me to monetize my time a bit, because, I think it's important to help people, but you can only do so much, right? So yeah, I decided to become licensed as a mortgage agent, and here we are. I get these calls and book these coffee dates. By the way, I love coffee, but I'm submitting mortgage applications along the way, and I'm loving every minute of it.
That's awesome. And so walk me through your first year. Like, how did that go? What was that like?
So it's been great. It's been very, very busy for me because I have a few other real estate endeavors that I had taken on. I bought a fourplex literally a month before I wrote my license. And my plan was to, I bought this fourplex. My plan was to renovate it, finish that project, and then get licensed.
And then get your license.
But I think my ADHD kicked in and I ended up just getting my mortgage license right away. I was like, all right, I want to do this and that and this and that, and I want to do everything at once. But so I ended up getting licensed, and so first year's been great. I was able to hit my goal of 10 files under 12 months. And first year was nuts.
Lots to learn. Tell me about you had to file. You said to me that you were like, man, it was for one of your first files. It was like, there was a bunch of nuance to it. What happened with that?
Okay. So through the training program, we were supposed to write an elevator pitch. And so I finished my elevator pitch, and then I put it out online as a video. I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity for some social content. From that video, I get a message, and it's a person who I went to school with like 20 years ago, and he tells me that he's put an offer in on an investment property, and he's been following my socials, and he wants me to help him get a mortgage. So I'm like, no problem, like I could do this, right?
Yeah.
First application, first client, first everything. I'm a complete newbie. So we schedule a discovery call and we start. Little do I know, this guy has a corporation held under another corp, owned by several people, of who half don't even live in the country, and their down payment is gifted funds. This was my first deal. Now, this may seem like a no-brainer for some seasoned agents, but being my first deal, I was like, where do I start, right? So yeah. I start the application process, and I loop in the real estate agent, because for me, I felt like it was a great way to open up the line of communication with a potential referral partner for future deals, right? So I'm big on,
Was this a real estate agent that you knew, or just
no,
you just happened?
No.
Okay.
So I asked my client to open up the line to do kind of like an e-intro, just in case I needed certain documents, which I did. And that was kind of like an organic intro. And I'm big on communication and keeping everyone updated every step of the way. So, we go through the motions and obviously the major pain points. And let me tell you, Scott, being on the agent side is nothing like being on the client side. Like I went in this overly confident, thinking like I've done this over and over and over again, so many ways as a client. But being an agent, it's completely different. So we're going through this whole app process, and I'm, calling every resource I can, our coaches, our trainers, our mentors. I even got the panic calls on closing day because the lender's underwriter was new and he had a background in auditing. And he wanted updated signatures and ID checks from all of the corp owners. And they ended up having to call the corp owners. And there was a time difference because they were in a different country. And my client's lawyer called me on closing. And I was like, okay, what have I gotten myself into? What if this deal doesn't close today? Like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, is this what being a mortgage agent is like? And I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I love this. So anyway, a week later, so we close that deal, and the real estate agent sends me an email, and he's like, hats off to you. Thank you so much. He's like, I reached out to a few other of my contacts who are mortgage agents, and none of them wanted to touch this deal. I guess, rumor has it that when you are established in the industry, like, you get to pick and choose what kind of deals you want, right? So he's like, no one wanted to touch this deal. No one had time. I'm so happy, like, super impressive. And another thing was that he said he loved how communicative and open I was and how I kept him in the loop every step of the way. He said no one's ever done that with him. So a week later, I get a call from this lady, and she's like, hey, I got your contact from so-and-so who was a real estate agent. And she's like, I heard you can make the impossible possible. She's like, he says you're a mortgage magician. I'm going to call you that, the mortgage magician. And I'm like, yeah, people call me that all the time. That's me. I'm the mortgage magician.
Starting right now. That's hilarious.
So that was another crazy deal, but it wasn't as crazy. I mean, she's self-employed and so on and so on. We had to do stated income. I had to go through all her business bank statements. And so, it was definitely, I mean, for me personally, I love being challenged because further along, I did get a few simpler deals where I had a straight purchase, and I got super anxious because I finished it so quickly. And I was like, okay, what am I missing? Because I'm so used to going through all these corp documents and leases and like going through 24 months of business bank statements. And you know what I mean? So, when I did get those straight purchases or refis, I was like, this is amazing. This is great. So I'm glad that I got those challenging deals in the beginning. Now fast forward to like a month ago, I'm in this little town called Almont, which, by the way, I'm obsessed with. It's this little town out of Ottawa. Amazing. But I spark up a convo with one of the store owners in that town because I'm wearing my, Bricks mortgage hat, and spark up a convo with her, and she starts telling me how her mortgage is up for renewal and she needs to do these renos on her house, and the last agent she worked with wasn't really good, and so I take her contact and we start the process, and we ended up refining her house, and we were able to take out some money, some equity, in order to get those renos done on her home. And again, throughout the whole process, I was really open with her, super communicative. I even tell my clients, like, text, email, whatever's easiest for you. Personally, I know some agents don't like texting, but for me, it's so easy because I can, get back to people right away. I'm always on my phone. So far, my clients have loved that. Anyway, so we go through the refi, everything's done. Her and I developed such great rapport. And she calls me up a couple days after closing, and she's like, I bought you a gift because you were so helpful. She goes, I'm telling everyone that you're my mortgage magician. And she gives me the coolest keychain with the mortgage magician that's on it from those tarot deck cards. And I had never mentioned to her that, that I was called a mortgage magician a year ago. I had never told her any stories or information about past files. I had never mentioned.
Oh, it's so funny that she used the same words.
Yeah. So I had never told her anything about that. So she's like, I'm going to call you my mortgage magician, and I'm going to tell everyone in town about you. So if I come across anyone that needs a mortgage, I'm going to tell them about the mortgage magician. So I thought, okay, this is a sign. I got to take this and run. And, I gotta brand myself as a mortgage magician. So that's great.
Right. That's hilarious. Okay. So a couple of things I noticed from that. One is that you looked at problems, like the thing I've always believed, problems equals profit. The bigger the problems you solve, the more profit. So how many referrals or how much business did you end up getting from that real estate agent after showing them how you put that file together?
I would say from that one referral source, 70% of my deals came from him. And, because I was so, caught up in a lot of my rental projects, I didn't have much time to
you were
market.
working for this first year, you're working kind of part-time because of you're renovating and managing.
But I'm done the rentals this week. But, it's interesting because I remember when I first started, you had mentioned back in our training, you had mentioned that, a lot of agents focus on branding and websites and logos and business cards. And that was something that when I started, that was like at the top of my priority list. Was like, okay, I want to get a logo done. I got to get, website up. I got to do all my branding, get all that in order. But little did I know, I think the referral, the relationships that you build with your referral partners are what's really going to drive that business. And that's going to be the major contributing factor to your success as an agent, is building those relationships.
Especially when you're new. Like that other stuff 100%. Is really not, nobody's coming to your website and going, oh my, because plus what are you going to put on there that is going to be unique if you're brand new? Like they're not going to be like, wow. It's not like you're going to have, 300 Google reviews or something that people can use as social proof that you're, they should use you. So
100%. And you know what's funny when I think back, like when I was buying property, I was working with one specific broker for the most of my purchases as an investor. And when I started with him, he was at one brokerage, and I think he switched throughout the years. He's been to 3 different brokerages, and I don't even know what brokerage he's at now. I didn't know what brokerage he was at during the whole process. I just had his name and his number in my phone, and that was it.
Right. It's always about the relationship at the end of the day.
100%.
And so the other thing I think about with this, so problems equals profit and communication equals cash. Like your communication is what you turned into that relationship that's turned into business. Same thing with that other client you're just talking about that you communicated a ton. She called you the magician. And it was, again, you built a relationship through communication. So when you say, like, what do you mean specifically by community? Like, what's the frequency and what are you doing that you're getting this sort of feedback? I mean, you're a likable guy, so that's part of it. But like, what is it just like, what is what are you doing?
So one of the things that really annoyed me as a client when I was working with different agents in the past was that they would go radio silent for weeks. And now I know that they were doing work in the background, but I didn't know that as a client. They'll work on a deal, they'll submit the deal, they'll wait for, response back from the lender, they'll, create signing docs. Like for me, I would essentially keep everyone up to date on every step of the way. I would let them know every step of the way what I was doing and at what step we were at in the application process.
Right. So, and you just do that by, like, would it be email, text? What were you doing to communicate to people?
You know what? Sometimes I'd email, depending on where we'd be at in conversation. Sometimes, depending on the type of client, it would be text. It's funny because I've had a few files where I know right off the bat that these are more formal email only type of clients. I wouldn't create that texting rapport with them. But for the majority, it would be text like, hey, your application was submitted today. Sometimes I wouldn't hear back from a lender for, let's say 3-4 days after an application's been submitted. So the next day I'll email them, hey, just a heads up, your file's still in the queue. 2 days later, the next day after that. So it's two days after submission. If I still haven't heard back from the lender, I'd let them know, hey, just a heads up, your application's still in the queue. No news is good news. Just like, I'll throw something like, hey, I hope your day's going well. Just wanted to keep you in the loop.
But you're just basically, you're getting ahead of them asking what's going on. Like they can never come to you and say what's happening because you're always, you're beating them to the punch, right?
Exactly. And you know what? When I was a client, if the agents would have done that with me, instead of leaving me silent for a week and a half, that would have satisfied all of my curiosity. And it would have created a much more pleasant experience.
And then, so how did you communicate with the real estate agent that made them go, wow, like the communication's excellent? Well, I mean, other than the fact that you took on a file that nobody wanted, by the sounds of it, and got it done, which I'm going to ask you some more about that in a sec. But like, what were the communication things that you were doing with that real estate agent?
So now with that agent, we've built such a great relationship that we're on a, texting type convo. And he'll call me up as well. But for example, if a client finished signing all the documents, then I would email him and let him know, hey, just a heads up, all documents have been signed. Submitting this file in a few hours, just so he knows, okay, file's going up for submission.
It's so funny that you say, I mean, it's so simple, but yet it's, I can see some people thinking, going, that's too much communication, but you probably can't over communicate, because even if they just see it and they move on, like they're I often joke that we know more what's happening with our pizza from Domino's than we do with our mortgage. Like you can literally be like, oh, pizza's being prepped. It's getting ready. It's in the oven. It's getting cut. Like, because of the Domino's pizza tracker, yet our mortgage stuff is communicated, right? Like they don't know how it works. And even if they've done a mortgage, they forget.
That's the best analogy. That's amazing. It's crazy because I've seen the Domino's app and it's like Uber as well, right? You know how they give you the step-by-step?
And they show you where the car is. Like you could be like, well, just tell you, but the fact that you can see the first time I used Uber and I could see the car, I showed my dad. My dad was blown away because he's like, this is a random stranger's going to pick you up and give you a ride. This sounds like he was losing it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, you could, because I called a cab and they didn't show up. I didn't even know where they were.
Yeah.
And so like, really, if you're listening to this, like it's that simple. It's really like the fact that you're communicating I never thought to communicate the documents were signed. Like, I'm like, that's just a step, but for you, that's a touch point that becomes like,
it takes 2 seconds, literally 2 seconds. And, I've worked as a client before I became an agent, I worked with an agent who, was insanely busy, who was doing 100 million a year, and he had 7, 8 assistants. And, I was dealing with one of his assistants as a client. They have time to communicate. They have time to do that, right? So there's really, at the end of the day, the way I see it is, okay, maybe I'm not as busy as the top agents right now. Maybe that's why I have time to do, but no, like at the end of the day, the rapport that you build with your clients and your referral partners are the driving factor of the success of your business. You have to maintain that. And personally, I enjoy it. You know what I mean? So, it's every step of the way. I'm gonna visualize that Domino's app now when I'm sending these emails and texts. That's awesome.
Yeah. What I've seen some people do is they'll have an email. So let's say that once a file gets, they get an app and then it gets submitted, like conditionally approved. They'll actually at the bottom of the emails, there'll be like your step 1 of 4, your step 2 of 4. And then, so they always know where they are, or step, whatever the number of, I got some templates that I can share with you on this, but like it really does help alleviate stress, improves communication, and makes people go, you know what you're doing. Like, and I don't have to I just think that it's still one of the simplest things that you can do. And you don't need you're just not using any fancy tech. You're just basically saying, hey, I touched the file. I'm going to touch the client and the referral source, right?
That's it.
And that's it. And like that alone, if you have no tech, that alone is enough for you to start to stand out and build a fantastic referral-based business.
And I think the reason why, the reason why I put so much emphasis on that is because as a client, like I said, you
were a customer many times because you've actually bought a bunch of real estate. And so you understand, like, you just want to know what the heck is going on.
Yeah. So like, if an agent submitted a mortgage application and I don't hear from them for 3 days, what am I going to think? Oh my God, something's wrong. I'm going to get declined. I'm going to lose this deal. Then, the anxiety dries up and then you start getting worried and it starts consuming you. It's like, wait a second. If I would have gotten a simple message saying, hey, just a heads up, file's still in the queue. I'll keep you posted. Have a great day. Oh, thanks. Okay. I know it's not declined. I know that they're not reworking something in the background.
Right. It's not like, hey, we've been declined by 3 lenders. We're now at the 4th. But even that you'd want to know.
Yeah.
Right. You'd want to know what's going on. So then you're like, okay. So one of the things you touched on is that you do have a background in real estate, but you are new in terms of underwriting, and there's a difference between underwriting and buying lots of real estate. And so how helpful was it for you to have access to like underwriting coaches in a Zoom room? Because that's one of the things that we do that I think is really helpful. But, what are your thoughts on that?
As I said, being on the agent side is completely different than being on the client side. So, a lot of the lingo was familiar to me, but the processes were completely new to me, right? How to submit the file. I knew what the file consisted of, but I didn't exactly know how to put it together. And now imagine someone coming into this as an agent who probably owns a home, but hasn't gone through this process as many times as I have. These underwriting coaches were a huge help. And at the end of the day, no one's perfect. So sometimes I thought that I had, a great strategy, or I had put an application together that was ready to go. And you go into these rooms and these underwriting coaches overlook the file and they're like, oh, wait a second. Or they go through the file and they say, wait a second, there's a rate promo going on for this lender. And sometimes they'll just give you that hint and help that'll create that much of a better experience for everyone.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. Okay. So I want to talk about your goal. So we had talked about this strategy that I learned from my friend Wally, 1-3-5. And so it's essentially, I'll give the breakdown: 1 main goal for the year, 3 priorities that you use to achieve that goal, and then 5 strategies for those priorities. And so we said, hey, it'd be kind of fun this would be an interesting experiment, because now last year you worked with a very small amount of bandwidth that you had. Now you've got like breathing room. And so walk through what you're going to do. And then we're going to document this. So you and I will do some periodic shows to check in how you're doing. I know you're, competitive driven guy. And so what was the plan that you came up with for this whole 1-3-5 thing? And then we'll talk about like next steps.
Okay. The 1-3-5, I actually did a bit of research on this, and super interesting. So, 1, I guess, being the major top priority goal. So my number 1 goal for the next 12 months, fund 25 files. So approximately, let's say 2 per month. That's the main goal. Then the 3, which are essentially the 3 medium goals that are going to help me get there. Number 1 is create and foster relationships with 3 real estate agents. So create those referral sources.
Because how many real estate agents do you have right now that are tight, that you have a good relationship with?
Well, I have a few that have sent me deals right now, but there are also many more who I'm friends with that I haven't reached out to yet, that I plan on. Actually, what's funny is that you and I had a conversation a couple days ago, and it was because of our conversation that I decided to start posting on social media a lot more. And someone that I went to high school with reached out to me when I posted one of my rentals, and she reached out to me to see if I had something available for one of her clients, and that created a conversation. What's interesting? She goes, "Oh, so what are you doing these days?" And I'm like, "Oh, you don't know? Like I'm a licensed mortgage agent. I've been doing that for a while."
I'm like all over my social media, and they don't even know, right?
And I go, you know what I told her? I said, the fact that you had to ask me means that I'm not posting enough on my social media so people know what I'm doing. And she goes, no. She goes, the reason why I don't know is because you haven't reached out to me yet. And I was like, you know what? I was like, okay, I'm taking full fault of this. She like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to make her one of my 3 agents this year.
She nailed it. Yeah. So one of the threes, I'm going to come back and make a comment on that in a sec. But so the one thing is 25 files. One is add 3 new great referral partners for real estate agents. What's the second thing?
So I want to host 6 real estate investing and mortgage related workshops this year. So be an average 1 every 2 months.
Right. So that'd be the second. What will be the third thing?
The third is, you know what? I really need to up my social media game, because I feel like if used correctly and productively, social media is a very powerful business tool. That's how I got my first deal. And that's how I got that call from that agent a couple of days ago. And by the way, we scheduled a coffee meetup for June 3rd. So.
Right. Okay. So, and then did you have time to think about through some of the strategies that you're going to use to apply? So like the idea of the strategies, at least from my understanding, the way Wally taught it to me is that the strategies are basically layered under one of those 3. So you've got like, what are my strategies to get realtor partners? What are my strategies for? And then the key with the strategies is you have a timeline attached to them. So like you can't do them all. I mean, you're one person, one dude, but you're going to be like, at least I've got my plan now for the year. I'm going to have these things that I'm going to do. So have you given thought to those?
Totally. So I think that I started doing this already, and it does open up conversation. I'm going to start visiting open houses on the weekend. But I've set a goal to do a minimum of realistically 2 per month, which is totally doable. So every other weekend, I need to call my existing real estate agent contacts. And you know what? I'm going to ask them who covers for them on vacation, because I already have a relationship with that agent. So by them referring their vacation contact, there's already rapport there. Number 3 for that one is, I think that, and I've actually already done this. We have, we're booking, we have a big marketing campaign, and a workshop booked for July and September, but I'm going to create partnerships for my workshops with these agents. So it allows me to, tap into their contacts as well. And we're working together on something that benefits both of us.
Right. I like that idea. So you got a plan on there. So then what will be the next one on there?
You know what? Super simple. I do have a lot of real estate contacts, especially I have some contacts that I've even used when I purchased back in the day. So I'm just going to simply pick up the telephone and schedule coffee meetups or lunch meetups or just conversations, putting myself out there more and actually calling these agents.
Right. Okay. And we'll only go through the one pillar because there's like 3, but what was the last one? We can maybe save some of the others for future, when we do a future update show. We can say, hey, tell me about one of these other 3, maybe the webinars next time or something. So what was the last one on that?
The last one is going to be, I think that I want to start interacting more with real estate agents on social media. Excuse me. So commenting, sharing their posts. Often you see real estate agents who advertise their listings on their social media. So I want to become more active in sharing those for them.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So the whole idea here is to get really clear on one outcome, main goal. That's going to be the most important. Then to have 3 sort of, sub ways that I'm actually going to make that major goal. I call it like priorities, and 5 strategies for each. And so then with the strategies, it's important to have a timeline and go pick and choose which ones that you're going to do in what order. And I'm excited, dude. I like, it's going to be fun to kind of watch you go through this process and see what you learn and even what you change. Because there's going to be things like, I guarantee if we circle back to this in say 4 months or something, you're going to be like, oh, this is how I've improved this, or I tried this, and do like an update on what's working, what's not working. I think that'll be fun. One of the things you said I want to come back to is that the real estate agent who said they didn't know you're a mortgage broker. So Adam Walker he was on a call with us today, sales training, and he was saying how he had somebody reach out to them and he had sent them a DM, hey, just let you know, put in my mortgage chat. I'm a mortgage broker now. If you have any questions, yeah. So he's done hundreds of these DMs and it's working really well for him. But he had somebody reach out to him and they had said, I didn't know you're a mortgage agent, even though they had followed his mortgage page and they liked his posts on his page, but they didn't because, you've probably done this. I see somebody that I know and like, and I throw a thumbs up on it or I throw a heart on it, but I don't actually watch it. I'm just like, I like that person. And I give it a little love. And so this person was giving him love on content that was mortgage related, but not even cluing in that he was a mortgage broker until he direct messaged them that, hey, I'm a mortgage broker. And they're like, oh, the dots were connected. So your real estate agent's not wrong. Like, so yes, you create the content because content can create conversations, but there's also another level, which is, hey, how do I get something that I know they have a high probability of seeing, which is some kind of a direct message.
It's the one-to-one. And you notice sometimes people who are promoting their business on social media, they'll put out those sporadic intro posts. Hey, noticed I have a lot of new followers. Just wanted to reintroduce myself, and they kind of give themselves a bio and a picture of themselves. Sometimes that helps. But you're right.
The problem with social media, it's a river. Like, so you throw it in and it's in with everybody else's content,
right,
and it's just gone. Like, and unless it's like goes viral, which is so rare, it'll disappear before anybody can even. But if it goes out in the morning, your followers by the evening, that thing is gone. Like, you might as well. There's been thousands of other things posted, and it's like, so, I think it's important to also go for the one-to-one, not just the one-to-many. One-to-many is okay, but one-to-many is not a substitute for one-to-one.
You can't beat the one-to-one. The one-to-one is definitely the most effective. Like, it's just common sense, right? When you're reaching out to that person and you're calling them and you're talking to them, you're having a conversation with them. I mean, that for sure beats a social media post, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's more, okay. So where can people find you online? This is going to be so fun. Thanks for coming to chat with us. Where can people find you if they're looking for you?
On Instagram, Facebook, X now. It's I am Geo Haddad. So IAM GEOHADDAD. I am Geo Haddad. That's
and we'll put the links on the show notes of this. You can click on it. You can go follow Geo and anything he's doing and follow along with his journey to do 25. So this is going to be awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks again for listening. And hopefully you were inspired from that conversation. If you're an experienced agent, you're like, okay, cool, man. I've done that before, but I still love talking to new people that have energy and drive. If you're a rookie agent, one of the things that Gio touched on is the fact that he was able to get this file done. So one of the things that's unique about Bricks, I'm going to just put my Bricks hat on for a second, is that we have underwriting coaches in live Zoom rooms for 55 hours a week. So that when you have a question on a file like Gio did, you can go into that Zoom room and you can say, what do I do with this? Because one of the challenges is it's hard enough to just go find business, but then you've now got to get it funded. And so we have found that having live underwriting coaches who've been touched thousands of files that can help you sort out which way is up and how to get that file done has been extremely valuable. And as you can tell, Gio's worked really well for Gio. If you're interested in that, go check out whybricks.com. You can find out more info. Also, follow along. We are going to document Gio's journey to get to 25 files and see if he can do it in the next 12 months using this 1-3-5 planning method. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And it was something that was taught to me by one of my mentors. And it's just a focusing tool. As a guy like myself with ADD, I think it's really useful for me to get really clear on kind of getting everybody in the boat rowing in the same direction instead of all over the place. And so it's going to be fun. We'll do an update show at some point, let you know how things are going and what's working and what's not. Thanks for listening. And this is the Out of Mortgage Brokering Podcast. As I always say, there's no problem in your business that someone else hasn't already solved. Your problem is who's got the answer. And hopefully you get some answers from listening to this show. I will see you on the next episode.